Thank you. Number 3, goal 7, individualized professional learning opportunities to promote empathy and expertise in all employees.
There we go. Okay, and Director of Professional Learning, Tina Smith, is going to talk to us about Goal 7.
Thank you, Dr. Linda. Good evening, board members. So tonight I'm going to talk to you about goal number 7. If you're looking at the strategic work plan, this falls underneath the category of maximizing employee capacity. The goal reads to individualize professional learning opportunities to promote efficacy and expertise for all employees. So if that is our goal, one of the first things that we need to do is first identify what those learning needs are. So I want to give you just a few examples of what that might look like and how we're going to do that this upcoming school year. So the first is with employee surveys. One example, at the end of each learning activity, we provide a survey and ask employees to give us some feedback. The presenter always wants to know how he or she did, if it hit the mark. And along with that short survey, we always ask the question, what learning do you need next? So that's one way that we can gather and know what employee learning needs are. Another is with supervisor feedback. So one example there is with the team evaluation rubric. So team evaluation, for example, we can pull a report that sees trends with refinement areas. So we can look and see where areas of need are and make sure that we have learning aligned to each of those. The next one that you can see on the list, the third one, is with classroom data. So one example there, the instruction team is going to work closely together this year. One example is with walkthrough data. So for example, we have an IPG for math and literacy. So we can easily come together to see trends that are happening in classrooms and address any learning needs that may occur as a result of that data. The fourth one that you will see here is with student data. So of course there's a lot of student data to look at. One example could be student benchmarks. So looking to see where there are areas of need with students could often mean there are needs with educators as well. So we can pull that data in to identify educator learning needs as well. So those are 4 examples of how we will first identify needs. Once the needs are identified, then we need to move toward providing ongoing professional learning that is aligned to each one of those needs. So a couple of examples here to highlight. One, we noticed last year that the needs of our new hires were starting to shift. And so we worked last year to develop 2 distinct pathways to offer yet another way to differentiate the learning for our new hires in their first year in the district. So one pathway is geared more towards a more traditional path of a teacher who comes, but the other pathway geared more towards the learning needs of those who are coming to us on maybe a permit or a job embedded license who don't have that same background that the other educators do coming. So a new layer of support to further differentiate those needs of our new hires coming in. Another example of how we're going to provide ongoing learning this year is through targeted staff developments all throughout the school year. So for example, our curriculum consulting teachers will put together learning on each of those days, identified from those data points that I mentioned earlier, to address learning needs, pulled for specific grade levels and content areas that would come together on those staff development days and continue that learning on each of those days throughout the school year as well. So once we pull together for that learning, it's great that we're building that expertise, but that's not only the only area of focus that we would like to have. The other thing that we would like to do is work to build that efficacy in our employees as well. You know, there is a quote from Henry Ford that says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And so we know how important it is that when you have that sense of efficacy, when you truly believe that you can do something, you're more likely to be able to have that success. And so we want to build that efficacy in our employees in addition to just learning the material. So I just wanted to highlight 3 ways that we're working to build that efficacy and give you a few examples of each. So one way that you can very effectively build efficacy is by people having mastery experiences. That means that they can step out and have that experience themselves. They can walk into a new situation and experience success. So we want them to be able to do that. Another way, if they're not able to experience that success themselves, they can have a vicarious experience. So basically they can see someone else who's similar to them have a success in a similar situation and think, oh, if they can do it, I can do it, and build efficacy that way as well. A third way is through social persuasion. So with social persuasion, you have this person who believes in you and says, hey, I really think you can do this, and that's a way you can build efficacy as well. So a few highlights for how we might go about building efficacy in each of these three ways. First example, our educational assistants and permanent subs this year will be able to have an orientation regardless of what their hire date is. So we've been doing an orientation for educational assistants for quite a few years now, but we've only been able to do it at the beginning of the year for the educational assistants who are hired over the summer. We didn't have the structures in place yet to be able to do that throughout the year, because as you may or may not be aware, just like we hire certified educators all throughout the year, we also hire classified employees throughout the year. So now whenever an educational assistant may be coming on board with the district, they will have the opportunity to have that orientation and to get some great knowledge before they step foot into the classroom. So that's a way that we're helping to build not only their expertise, but have a better sense of efficacy, because they will know better what to expect when they step foot in the classroom on that first day and how better to address their roles. A second example that I would like to highlight for you is our behavior team this year is going to be working directly with staff to help them deliver effective behavior interventions at every tier. So we're hoping that when these new skills are being built and the behavior team is there with them as they put those practices in place in the classroom, that they will also have that sense of efficacy, that they can do this when they start sensing those immediate first results. All right, a couple of examples around vicarious experiences. First one is with our technology integration coaches. Coaching is a great way to be right there in the classroom. So one of the pieces is to be able to model lessons. So if you can't have that mastery experience where you do it yourself, you have someone who steps into the classroom and you can see it done in your classroom with your students, because that tends to be a barrier for teachers sometimes. They can have a new learning and say, okay, that sounds really great, but I'm not sure if I can do that in my classroom with my students. And so then you have someone else coming into your room with you, modeling that learning, and then you can see someone having success in your classroom with your students. So then it can build that efficacy so the teacher then feels that he or she can take it and do that as well. A second example here is with video resources. So we're working to continue to build a library of video resources so that educators can see other educators modeling these best practices. So it could be as simple as a teacher grabbing a swivel, and that's video recording equipment that we have where they can record their lesson and then share it privately with other teachers to be able to see those practices in place. Finally, social persuasion is the last area that I would like to highlight. So two examples here. Again, I'm mentioning coaches and mentors, because these are the people who are working alongside the teachers all year long, and that are perfect people to say, hey, I saw you do this great thing over here. If you can do that, then you can also do this. I believe in you. So hopefully that will help to build that sense of efficacy as well. And the last one is something simple. It's a practice that we probably all know and do from time to time, but it's also one that's easy to kind of slip to the wayside when you get really busy. So we're going to intentionally focus on really celebrating and recognizing employees for their exceptional learning accomplishments throughout the year, and sharing that not just with them, but their supervisors as well, because we want them to feel seen and heard and know that we value them and know that we're behind them and that they can do it as well. So those are just a few examples that I wanted to highlight for you this evening for how we plan to continue to individualize professional learning, but also focusing on those efficacy and expertise pieces as well. Any questions?
Does the board have any questions? Trustee Davis?
Yes, I got a question. Hey there. Hey. Got a question about the video recording practices. The video recording practices as the content's uploaded, I should say. Is there going to be approval for that content in there? Eyes on action.
So for example, it's what a mentor does in a private meeting with teachers. So they may record a little snippet of what happens in their classroom that day and share. Because a mentor doesn't necessarily have the ability to step outside of the classroom and go visit that teacher because they're both teaching at the same time. So I can do a snippet, share it in a private room with my mentor, and we can give each other feedback that
So
way.
it's very limited close within that.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other questions, thank you.
Thank you.
County Commissioners, do you have any questions, have any comments? None. Board members, do you have any comments this time? Seeing none, Dr. Lewis, it's in your hands.
Good evening, board members. It has already been a busy week as we welcomed back students yesterday and also officially opened our 8th traditional high school at the Kirkwood Complex. If initial counts throughout the district on the first half day are any indication, I would predict we may be in for another historic increase in enrollment. We will continue to monitor numbers over the next couple of weeks and have an updated count at our next meeting. Our back-to-school road shows have continued this week at each high school complex with their feeder middle and elementary schools. The energy and excitement have been amazing, and thank you to the school board members and elected officials who have rearranged schedules to attend. I wanted to share with you just a few of the numbers that have been shared with some of the faculty and staff members at the road shows. 99.3%. That is the percentage of our third grade students who were promoted this year. Over 3,000 students took the third grade ELA TCAP, and we're happy to report the vast majority were able to be promoted through various options to include summer school and or tutoring. 98%, this is the percentage of teaching positions that are currently filled in our district. While we still have several openings, particularly in special populations, we are in a much better place than we were at this time last year. Additionally, 79 educators are rehires. What that means is they left our district at some point and this year have chosen to return to CMCSS, and that's a number we're very proud of. Mr. Garland, this concludes my report for the evening.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.